A lot of companies compete on price, but once they realize that price doesn't matter when you're not a commodity, that's when you can start pricing things appropriately. In this episode, I talked to Jessica Renard. She is from NewSource, and we talk about transforming her business from a product-based business to one that is not so much focused on discounts and price, but on the value and the services that they provide based on the pains that they're solving. If you've ever struggled to justify your price, this conversation is probably going to help you. Listen in. All right, welcome everybody to the Slow Pitch Podcast, where we are talking about sales again today. And today we have a special guest, Jessica Renard, and she is with NewSource. So tell me a little bit about what NewSource does, and we'll get into a little bit of why this applies to sales in a second. So go ahead and tell me what you guys do so people at a high level understand what you do, because I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, sure. So we are B2B. We're positioned as a micro wholesaler that curates inventory for store owners like resale stores, consignment shops, as well as online resellers that further sell on marketplaces like eBay, Poshmark, live selling, like whatnot. And so we have our demand side, which is our customer base. And then we also have a big sourcing team where we're constantly, sourcing new deals and partnerships for better inventory.
And it's kind of an interesting world in that you're kind of helping these companies offload, if you will, some of their excess inventory. Mm-hmm. And then you're giving people the opportunity to buy something so that they may not have been able to get maybe it just wasn't available. Maybe they didn't have an opportunity to get it or something along those lines, correct?
Yeah, so that store owners don't have to waste their time sourcing. They can, focus on making money rather than having to go out there and curate inventory and do this themselves. A lot of our customers are owner-operated store owners that who just don't have the time to do it the right way.
Well, and that's smart, because when you're running a business, there's only so much time in the day, and so to offload something, that's definitely going to help. So there's a value for them to do that. Talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges that you're running into in terms of that are related to sales, and that's kind of why you're here, why we're talking.
So I would say we're still in startup mode. I started the business in 2019, and my team, especially my sales team, they are all former customers. So I don't have traditional, and myself as well, don't have that traditional corporate background, but everything has been very grassroots, guerrilla, is kind of the culture from day one. And so we're very successful at customer retention, but new customer acquisition is kind of where we need help. And, 80% of our revenue is from 20% of our customers, and that's going to be a problem at some point.
But once you get a client, I think you told me that they stay, right? Is that, yeah. So the fact that they stay, it's not a matter. So I've worked with people before where they have an issue on the other end where it's retention, like keeping the clients once they get them. You don't really have that issue, which is a good thing, because retaining clients is usually the most profitable way to increase sales. Like if you can continue to work with them, mm-hmm. Now every new customer is just increasing sales without really trying. So that's kind of a cool part. So I'm glad to hear that. And talk to me about your new customer acquisition costs. I mean, are they high? What does that look like in terms of how difficult is it to get a new customer and so forth?
Also lends to why I'm here is I don't know that information.
Yep.
I don't have a formalized marketing team. We don't really have a marketing spend. So to understand what that CAC is, I can't.
Yep. Okay. That's totally fine. And because I'd written a note down to I'll make sure I asked that question, because I couldn't remember if there was a number associated with it or not. So no worries on that. That's an easy one to figure out once you get to that point. And so it's getting those new customers and getting new clients acquisition. So those are the mom and pop stores, the retailers, the different companies that want to offload or get rid of some of their excess inventory.
The ones that are buying from us.
The ones that are buying from you. So you're trying to acquire new customers or clients the mom and pops that would buy from you to resell it is what you're doing. Yes.
I don't currently have a problem sourcing supply, which has been one of the great parts of the business from day one, is that the supply has always been there. And especially with what's going on in the industry with, tariffs and overproduction and overconsumption, there is no shortage of supply.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And so you have a sales team already, correct? Or a few people that are doing some sales stuff?
Yes, I have 8. 8 sales associates and 1 sales director.
Okay. And the sales team, what's their process? What do they what do they do to acquire new?
So we use HubSpot as our contact management tool. We've played around with media buys. So sometimes we have incoming leads that go into HubSpot and get assigned. But otherwise, it is really a lot of social media research, searching who are the resellers and just kind of cold reaching out to them. We've also tested kind of a referral program with our current customers. Because the retention is so great, it's been easy to ask for referrals, but it hasn't necessarily been easy to get referrals.
Oh, interesting. What have they told you why they're not? Maybe it's indirectly. Have they told you why they don't refer?
No, and I'll make an assumption is that because they're owner operated and they're often kind of like on an island by themselves, and the industry, like the thrift store industry, isn't necessarily franchised or streamlined. Perhaps they just don't have the network. I would assume that they did, but they're willing to like try for us, but we haven't received that many.
Interesting. Okay. So they'll try, but it's not top of mind, right? So it's not one of those. And what do you do to incent them? Is there any incentive for them?
Yeah, we offer $500 in free shipping, like $500 off and free shipping off of their next order once a referral has purchased.
So there's monetary assistance if they do that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's for each one, or is it just one time?
Right now it's for one time.
Okay. Is there a reason there's only one time?
No.
Okay.
That's something to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Because I think, if you have multiple people that are referring and they're for a new company every time, or new, that and somebody else that would be interested in, maybe that would be helpful, because that's a quick, easy expansion. Where'd you come up with the 500 kind of?
Our average order value from a first time store owner is like $3,600. So I was willing, kind of give away 12% of the first time that customer orders, but it's not like in perpetuity.
Right. Yeah. That totally makes sense. Yeah. I wouldn't do that in perpetuity, but if you've got one who's given you a referral and then they give you another referral and then another referral.
It's on each one. Sorry.
Each one. Okay. So that's good, because then at least they feel like they can do that. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to grow, and it's really cost free for you, right? You don't have to go acquire somebody, go through the sales process. They already kind of know it's a good deal. So, all right. So the salespeople, talk me through their processes and their steps in terms of like, how do they categorize? How do they work through, like, you get a new lead. What's the process? If somebody was there, let's say I'm working for you, I'm doing sales, and I get a new lead. What are my steps?
They are trying to get a phone call or a Google Meet with the customer, learning as much as we can so that we can categorize them properly, like in HubSpot. So we understand like which vertical they run under, and then getting an understanding of what their biggest inventory needs are, and then kind of backfilling that way. But it is, I would say the sales team day, they spend a lot of time calling current customers, getting them to repurchase on a new deal that we've brought in. Like there's not a lot of new leads that are flowing in.
Okay, that's interesting. So walk me through, if they're consistently working through your current clients. Let me back up by saying this. Do you like doing cold calls?
Me, no.
Okay, I don't think anybody does. So if I'm looking at this as a salesperson, I have the option to call somebody I already know is going to buy, right, versus I don't know I'm going to make that other call, right? So the question of being, how do you balance their day to be focused on new leads versus the other? I'm assuming you have an incentive program that's based on.
I have a new customer kickback. It's like $150 per new customer. We're getting maybe 30 a month.
Okay.
Like about 100 a quarter is like what it's running this year, which I think is I would imagine that's very low.
It could be. When you think about cold calling, if it's true cold calling, probably not too bad, because that's not an easy conversion, right? How do they work through before we go to that, have you ever tested having one individual salesperson just do cold calling? That's really no.
Yeah. And we're talking about that right now because we just landed a very large deal with a brand that we're under NDA with, but the inventory is around 80,000 units a month that I have to prepay for. So that's imperative for this specific deal to be successful.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine, because now you've got inventory and you've got to get right. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So having one person just doing that would be helpful. And I'm assuming they have a list that they're working. How do you get that list?
So there are some franchises. So let's say like a Plato's Closet. I know we have the list of the 700 stores. So we work off that list. And then there's another franchise. So we try to segment it by franchise if there, but there's just not that many. And then the rest is Google. We've purchased lists in the past, but they're so diluted and store. I mean, that's a horrible way to get leads.
Yeah.
And then just like when we mess around with media buys, just focusing on those incoming leads.
If you're going to have somebody do just cold calls, obviously they have income issues, right? So you're going to have to incent plus income. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. So I've been testing for the last 2 years. We have a cohort of salespeople that are 1099 only with a heavy commission structure. And then I have salaried people, W-2 with a much lower commission structure. And I've been trying to figure out what is the best path. And it's hard to get the 1099 people to like attend all the meetings and have the right buy-in because there's no salary attached to it. So I think for me selfishly, like I'd like to own their time more than I do. But I think if I found the right 1099 group, like a real hunter, the pay structure is great. It's just, you've got to apply yourself.
How often do you do the meetings?
We're meeting heavy, maybe like 4, 5, 6 a week.
Okay. For those independents, you want them to be there that many times?
At least 3.
At least 3. And if they showed up 2, is that okay or not as good?
It's fine, but they'll just miss out. We're opportunity buyers. So like a new deal comes in, it needs to get talked about, like it gets put into HubSpot, but the business is so product focused that there's a lot of conversation and showing of images and videos and, all that.
Okay. So those meetings are more like, here's the products that we have now and what we're working. Okay. All right. That makes sense. So having them there, it does become important because they got to know what you have.
For them, right? Like for their success.
Do you record those meetings ever?
We do. Yeah. Everything's recorded.
Okay.
We use Fireflies.
Okay. So they could see some of it if you really wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful. Because I was going to ask, if you're doing like one a week or whatever, you could almost incentive with just like show up as an extra $50 every time.
Yeah.
But especially if they're good, right? Then it's worth their money if they're good people.
I have found that like the people that agree to take a 1099 job, I want those people. It's like, right, if that person has the head that like, I'm going to come into a no salary, high commission, and I understand that I have to work for it, but the payout on the other side is large. That's definitely, to me, says like, okay, I want this person. And then it's just making sure that like I utilize them properly and give them the right tools once they're on board. Yeah,
that's good because they have their own incentive. They know that they can do it.
Yeah.
And then there's no skin in the game and no cost for you almost, right? So they do the work, they get paid once they finish the job. So you have some that are 1099 and some that are in-house.
Yeah, and what's happened over the years is that like my best 1099 people I have hired within 6 months. One person that started as a 1099 salesperson is now running my customer success department, like full-time salary with a bonus plan. And that's happened to probably 4 or 5 people.
So that's how one of the questions I was going to ask you is, how do you find really good salespeople? So you're testing.
For the most part, it's been my customers have become my best salespeople.
So they have their own things to worry about. Then you hire them directly?
Yeah. And this is more for the online resellers, not people that have storefronts, but online resellers. And then I did just do my first hire of someone from a completely different industry. She's like a big time account manager for HubSpot, actually. And she's doing great.
That's crazy. Okay, cool. That's cool. All right. Do you have written down or have you identified what skills are really important to you in that role to make sure that when you find them, you will see them right away?
I don't have it written down, but I guess like what I look for is product knowledge, and being able to like work a room, a conversation, having that extroverted, being able to turn on that extroverted thing, even if you're not extroverted. And strong, it's all follow-up, right? So someone that's got like strong follow-up game is what I've identified so far. I'm sure there's more.
So there's a process to their work and how they work. And so I have found, it's weird, I have found that more than not, I'm surprised by introvert, extrovert, how important that is, because I find that extrovert is important in some respects and introvert is better in other respects. So how do you balance those two? Because when you have somebody that's really extroverted, they do all the talking and they don't listen to what the needs are of the client. So how do you balance that, or how do you make sure that or is it just like a very close, they're both about the same?
So we have heavily invested in coaching for the team. I have a small team. We're 18 people. We're all women, and most most of the team's under the age of 45. So we've done a lot of coaching. We've gone through a lot of the tests. I would say once a quarter we get together and just kind of learn how each other works. I think the introvert extrovert thing, like introverts recharge by unplugging, like getting away from people, and extroverts recharge by continuing to talk to people. So I think as long as an introvert I think they're typically like lean into being a type A person, they can turn it on, they understand like the job, and then they can turn it off. So in some sense, sales is great for an introvert because it's like an off-on conversation. And then a lot of the follow-up is done like behind the scenes, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think the majority of my sales team, they are probably introverts, and I'm the heavy extrovert.
Interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting.
I say that because I myself am an introvert, and some of the introverts that I've come around, they tend to be good at asking questions, figuring it out, and then they just sit there and listen. And then they realize that, okay, this customer has this problem. And so they ask more questions about that. And everybody always thinks that an extrovert is a great salesperson, but they're the ones that everybody see, but they don't necessarily, people can see them coming, right? So anytime you go to this is a bad example because it's not what an extrovert is, but you go to a car dealership, it feels like they're all extroverts, right? Mm-hmm. But the really good salespeople there are typically the ones that are a little bit surprising, and they're not quite as in your face. So there's nothing wrong with, listen, you can be a very good salesperson as an extrovert, and you can be a very good salesperson as an introvert. I just find it's interesting that people tend to think that extroverts are way better when it really depends on their skills in other areas. One of the other questions I wanted to ask is there a process that they have? In other words, when they're at a certain stage in the sales process that they are following? Do you have steps or processes that are written down, or are there things that you know that when they're in this stage, they're doing these things?
No.
Okay. That's okay. Because
that's like a very embarrassing answer, but it's
fine.
We're still, everything's like fire ants. And I think like as I'm talking these things out, what I'm realizing is that I think we're so product focused. Like we believe that the product sells itself.
Right.
And I think that might be where we're missing. Like everything is just all about the product and how we're driving the product to the customer, and that like price elasticity, not a strong focus on the sales process. But product, like we have down, and maybe that's where the shift needs to be.
Well, there's a couple of reasons I'm asking. One is process becomes really important the more you grow. So as you scale, and you're going to have more salespeople, you're going to have more different things you have to deal with, the scale becomes the issue. And so you have to have that process down and nailed, right? So the culture has to be there a certain way about how you approach things. So in the very beginning, that initial phone call, there should be a conversation in their head, and while they're talking about what kind of person am I dealing with on the other side of the line? So are they, and I always use DISC, and if you've heard any, so all the other thing, in other episodes of the podcast here, we talk about DISC. And so are they high D, are they high I, S, or C? That's how you're going to now talk to that person. And there's a purposeful conversation that is driven by the other person's personality, not by their own. So if I'm the salesperson and my DISC is, let's say, an I, my tendency is going to be talk, all the fun stuff, but it's not going to be getting to the meat of the issue. When you're talking to a person that's a C on the other end, they're going to be like, "What? I don't even want to talk to you anymore because this has nothing to do with what I'm looking for," right? Yeah.
How do you get someone to be able to read that?
So there's a lot of indicators. I think that's a good question, because the best way to put it is if you look at DISC as a square, right? Mm-hmm. You'll have on one side, you'll have a D and a C, and on the other side, you have an I and an S. The D and the C are task people, and the I and the S people are more people, if you will. When you listen to somebody talk and they're a high D personality, they're going to talk about what's the next steps, how are we going to do this? What do you mean? Why can't we do this by then? That kind of thing. A C is going to want data and statistics and information, like what's my cost per and what's this, right? But an I is going to be like, well, what kind of colors do you have? What fashion? What's the trend? Blah, blah, right? And then the S is going to be about their team. So they're going to be about the rest of making the decision with their team. I need to check with my vice president of this. I need to check with my design person, whatever, right? So they now are not they won't make the decision by themselves. They'll make it with their team. And an I typically does that too. They want to get input from everybody. So you listen for clues. That's one of the aspects of, so that should be early in the sales process, because now everything falls off from that.
Yeah.
And everything, and that should be in their CRM system entry, so that even after they've become a customer, they now are spoken to in that language, if you will. So every time that salesperson has to go back to that customer to resell again, they're going to use that same, and they all should understand it. Every single salesperson should understand that, right? Mm-hmm. So they're all on the same page. Everybody, it's like that customer thinks, you guys are awesome. Every time I talk to you guys, you give me all the information I need, even though it's just, no, we're talking in your language.
That you clocked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the other component of that is, are they visual? Are they auditory? Are they kinesthetic? And I know that's another weird thing, but if they're visual, they need to see things. They need to.
Those are the people that are asking for pictures.
Yeah, they're the ones asking for pictures. They're the ones that are even saying, that's not how I see it. Or what does that look like? Or they'll say things that are visually verbiage that is visual. Whereas an auditory person might say, I don't hear you say that you have this, or I don't, and then you have a kinesthetic that's going to say, I was listening to somebody the other day and they were saying something along the lines of, that doesn't feel right, or I can't quite get a handle on that. They're saying things.
Gut and intuition person.
Yes, that's exactly right. So they're the feeling, not emotional feeling, the grasping, the tactile. And so they may even be the ones that say, can you send me a sample? I want to feel it, right? Basically what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't get that, but that's early on in the process. That's one of those steps that should be taken care of by those salespeople, is entering all that information in and learning how to speak to that person in that way. That's the first step. And then the second part of that step is just really deciding on what the process is going to be like for them as a client. So initially, when I try to talk to somebody brand new, my goal is to say, listen, I think my understanding of how this is going to work is I'm going to kind of talk you through, or we're going to work through these conversations. But at the end of these conversations, if you're going to tell me, I don't want to do that, you're thinking, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to buy, that's okay. Tell me it's okay. Or if you feel like we're heading in the right direction, we just need something else or more information, tell me. I don't want to assume that I'm giving you all the information, but there's certain things that they need to give them to know that you're on the same page. Right. And then that's just the whole initial conversations. And then they should be getting into the next thing, which is learning about what their problems are. So how much do you guys talk about the customer or the client's pain? How do you get into that?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So when we buy, let's say a deal, Anthropology or Free People, we go into the conversation with the the comparative data of what we're finding on the marketplaces, and say something like, hey, you can buy this for $8. We're finding that customers are selling it for $16. If you display it this way, perhaps you can get an extra $1. And if for some reason that misses, then they'll definitely pivot and talk about okay, so if that's not part of your inventory needs, tell us what it is that you're looking for. And then we can make it happen. Typically, we can source what they need, or we just have to present it different. We already have it, but we just have to present it differently.
So you start with telling them what you kind of want to.
We start by telling them what we have, what deals we have. Yeah. Which is maybe too transactional.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we're trying to find a way to switch to this transformational concept where we are integrated into these customers' business structures, because we are here to empower the customer, but we're again so product oriented. It just is very transactional.
So it's a difficult shift for an organization to make. Okay, we're going to product now. We're going to be more people focused. My guess is you're kind of a bit of a high D personality.
I'm very. Yeah.
I couldn't tell. So that's typical, because your task, you're trying to get, let's go to the next one. What I've found is that companies that shift from being very transactional to being more interpersonal and working toward getting what the other person needs, the price that they can charge dramatically changes, improves. So I'm not sure that you have the flexibility in your line of what you're doing to just say, well, we're going to charge 20% more. You don't, probably. But if you get even if it's a little bit of a percentage improvement, but the length of time that they're with you even extends even further, that's a value too. So I guess the question I would ask is, when you have the conversations about pain, my question really is what are the pains that you're solving for the customer, or how do they tell you what their problem is?
They tell us what they need. Like they tell us what they're having a hard time finding. Our online resellers are sourcing themselves. They're driving to thrift stores. They're searching through racks. They're sourcing their own inventory. And so that's easier to like be transformational because we can say, you know, what's the ROI of your time? Like you buy from us, it just shows up at your front door. That way you don't have to schlep your kids in the car. Like that one's a little bit easier. And then for our storefront owners, they're like just saying what they're having a hard time getting their hands on, and they know they're missing the mark on a category or an upsell or something like that. We just got acquired in November by a new investor, and he must talk to me 10 times a week about like, Jess, how are you going to make that switch? Like you've built a very transactional, successful business, but in order for this to have scale and, you know, 5x what we're doing, it has to be transformational. And I'm having a hard time finding what the value is that we bring to the table that can be defined as transformational.
For the client or for your company?
For the client, because it is inventory. Like it is a transactional item.
Yeah, but every client has a need. So you said one of the things they're doing is they're like, I'm looking transactional, yes, in a sense. I'm looking over, I can't find this. Okay, and let's say you have it. And if you present it in such a way of, let me see if I can find that. Let me get back to you. And then an hour later, you call back, found it, because you already had it. But it makes them feel like you spent an hour working on it. Mm-hmm. That becomes a little bit of a shift in their mindset of, wow, these people are good. And they actually found this for me in that amount of time. Okay, how much is it? And they're willing to pay probably more than they normally would.
Because we delivered everything that they asked on.
Yeah. And you've created a huge value for them. They don't have to worry about going to find it anymore. And it's going to improve their sales. Mm-hmm. So what is the problem that you're solving for them? Yes, they have time invested, but they want to improve their sales too, right?
Yeah.
So if they have the product that they need,
to make them profitable, help them be profitable.
Yeah. So all the conversations need to be questions about how they're struggling with. I would be asking them, are you, let's say I can find this. What does that do for your company? What does that do for you guys? Mm-hmm. Because it puts in their head, they never really think about it that way. They're like, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. But if you go, well, what does that do to you guys? How does that help? Like, so what? I find it. Then what? And they go, well, I mean, what would they say?
I would imagine, I was like thinking that through while you were saying that. I think our customers would say, well, I know I can flip it quickly. I know the margin is there. I know I can, to my men's buyer, also sell them kids' clothing. And so that's why I struggle, because I think the answer to that question for my customer goes back into the transactional zone.
But so let's walk through that, because you said that they look at it in terms of, I can turn this product quickly.
I know.
So do you ask
quickly?
So do you ask the question next? Well, what is your what is your flip rate? I don't remember the terminology for it, but what is that normally? And how fast would this change your overall number? And by how much?
Okay.
One thing I do know about retail is that if you have good margins and you're flipping it fast, you're making a lot of money quickly, right? So,
or it's strong, yeah.
Yeah, and so the more you can do that for them, the better, and you become extremely valuable for them. Mm-hmm. Is there a tier in your? I know this sounds crazy, but is there a tier in your client base that you find it a little easier to find the products that they're looking for, that you can solve their issues and demonstrate to them that the pain that they're having, which is, I can't flip stuff fast enough, I can't find the right product, or I can't, whatever those issues are, that you could make them an elite member or some sort of a. Do you have that already in place?
We're building it out right now, a VIP membership program. So we're taking our top 20 customers and putting them into like a beta test. Just like customers that we trust, that if we kind of mess up or deliver on something wrong, they're not going to.
Well, it's a good way to do it. It's a good beta test to do that.
Yeah. So that is in the works, as well as a subscription model on our evergreen inventory that I know I always have, and a store can just order into it. And we're testing the subscription model. So like if the store owner can eliminate having that conversation with us, and they just know that they need 1,000 units of Target clothing every month, like, let's just make that happen. So they can skip that process.
Yeah.
It's not finished yet, but.
Yeah. But what's the pain that's solving?
I think it's helping with speed.
Okay.
And inventory planning and consistent inventory levels.
Okay. And would that also include my competitor down the street will get it 2 weeks later than what I'm getting it, because I'm a VIP member, and right. And so now they have the first shot at getting what they need for sales.
Yeah. Okay. Like, it's guaranteed it's going to go to them first. They're going to have a chance to buy it before tier B.
Yep.
And maybe everyone is a VIP member. I'm not We're not sure.
I mean, yeah, you guys determine who's in, right? So what's the difference? It could be 90% of the people, but like, it doesn't matter as long as you deliver what you say you're going to deliver. And then there's some people that just don't want to do that. And that's okay. So, and then I think one of the questions I wanted to ask you is what percent of the people that you approach don't close? So is it a lead problem or is it a sales problem? My gut tells me one thing, but
I think it's a lead problem.
You think it's a lead problem still? And that's because you don't have enough leads.
I don't know I don't know how to build that side. And I think my gut, because this is all I know, is to hire hunters. And like my team is considered farmers, right? And that's what they're really good at. But I need to build out this hunting team and I need to hire a sales director that can build it because it won't be me. I don't have that skill set. So I think I just don't currently have that expertise on the team.
That makes sense. Okay. That's perfect. So because I think finding the leads is not always easy, but once you get somebody that understands how to do that, then it makes a lot more sense. Plus, I think it just takes time. I mean, if you have people working on doing the farming, which is like repeat customer, right? They're not going to spend the time on hunting it out, right? They're just not going to do it. So you have to have some people that are specifically assigned to doing that task or it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Training process for salespeople, you've developed over time, it sounds like. I mean, you find good people, but then you develop them as you go, right?
Yes.
That's kind of your process. Do you have a defined process so that as you scale?
It's like heavy HubSpot training. And then, we still live in Google Sheets, which is a problem. But just helping them learn all the lingo and all the inventory, where to find proper inventory levels that they can, when their customer says, I need XYZ, how can they go verify that we have that? So it's more like tactical training. They're already coming to the table with the expertise. So it's not really knowledge training. It's more just like how to use the systems.
If you had the ability to train somebody from the ground up, though, would that be helpful or not helpful?
I don't know if it's necessary because we're bringing in such strong, and again, this might be the problem, bringing in really strong product experts, not necessarily diehard salespeople. Like one time I took a shift outside of what I normally do to challenge myself, and I hired a door knocker that was sold commercial water filtration systems, and he was amazing. But it just wasn't the right time. Like I wasn't built out enough to be able to have that like personality on the team. And there was a lot of like running in the gray that we're also not ready for. Like, I don't know how to build guardrails around someone that is like an insane sales killer. And that's what this person was.
I mean, do you need guardrails for a good salesperson? Yes, you need to be able to have, okay, here's your limitations, right? I need to make this much margin, period. No, you're not going to sell it for free. Like that's not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, you can set up the basics, but I got to tell you, my experience has been really good salespeople, difficult to find, but when you find them, they're worth their weight in gold, and you can really help them, free them to doing what they need to do and make a lot of money, and they'll make you a lot of money too. So I think you're right in, finding somebody that's outside of the industry, but you also have to know how well they do at doing sales so that they can, because my always question is, you got a really great salesperson, they approach you, they're like, why are you changing from what you're doing to this? Because that sounds like there's an issue there somewhere. So
true.
Yeah. I've asked you a bunch of questions. We kind of talked a bunch of different things. Any questions that you have? Or wish that we would have talked about or at
I guess I just feel that I go to work every day and I know what I know, and I crave just maybe like mentorship or understanding how the corporate world functions, so I can take bits and pieces of that and like apply it into what we do. So maybe my question would be like, is there a place where you would suggest that I start just understanding what corporate processes are doing?
So one of the questions that I would ask would be, do you have a SCORE office nearby? That's one of the cheap, easy ways to do it. These are people that have been in corporate world at all levels, who are good at consulting or coaching, and a lot of times they're free or inexpensive. Those are good people to know, and they also collect data, so they have a lot of good inside information about what's going on in the industry, what the trends are, and that kind of stuff. And you can ask for somebody that's focused on that. So that's one area to do it. Okay. Two, I'm assuming you have a mentor. No.
Yes, I have an executive leadership coach and then like a business mentor. And my new investor has taken on a very strong mentorship role. to me.
Which is good. Okay, that's good, because it means they have, especially if it's an investor, they have a vested interest. Number one, number two, they know you can do it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that, right? As an investor, they would take actions that are like trying to go around you, and they're actually trying to develop and work with you. So that's a very good thing. And I think the mentor thing, it's funny because sometimes people think that you have to hire a mentor, and my experience has also been that there's people that are in similar industries, or let's call it sister or brother industries, that you guys talk about what the trends are, what's going on, what are you seeing, what are your problems, and just talk through things with each other and bounce ideas off. I'm assuming you have that as well.
Yeah. I could expand that a little bit, but those are good ideas for sure.
I find that is a little bit freeing. So good example, in my business, I had a complementary company that I used to work with, and then they ended up selling their business. And I was like, I did not do a good job of finding other people that also could be that type of person. Okay. So when sales got slow, they were slow, and they would be like, yeah, it's slow right now. And like, okay, it's not just me, right? So things,
a pulse check.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that's all you need. It's like, okay, I'm not crazy. Right. This is not me doing this. It's what's going on right now. Yeah. And that could be both very good business or very poor business. It doesn't matter. It's knowing that and having that person to bounce it off from. So I would always recommend expanding that as much as you can within reason. I mean, you don't want to go crazy, but if you got a few people, that's good. So what other questions? Because that's a really good thing that I don't think enough people talk about, is having people that just give them inside information from a running a business standpoint.
Yeah.
So.
I'm a single mom, and I've built a village of like mom friends that can help me, but I think also like applying that to the workplace too. Like your like professional village is important.
Extremely powerful.
Next question would be, what's your favorite business book that you would recommend?
So so just in this whole conversation we've been having, the one thing that kept coming to my mind was Blue Ocean Strategy, because you are in a very commoditized business, but Blue Ocean says it doesn't have to be that way. You find your own blue ocean, find your differentiating point, and that's what you're going to work with and get people to attach to your brand. And so that comes with attaching the pains and the issues that the people are having who are buying from you, shifting them from the normal, listen, I just need this much and I need it this price. Mm-hmm. Because anybody that comes to you with just a price and not, that's a transactional person. But if you can let them understand, you can just, hey, I know you want it at this price. I know you want, if they're going to fight you on price. I would rather have that conversation earlier where you're talking about what their problems are. And if it's time, like they don't attach the time that they spend searching everywhere to their price, right? They just...
Right.
Yeah. So ask them the question and make them work through it. You spend how many hours a week searching for that product? Right. And they go, well, it's once a month. Okay. Once a month. And how many hours? Well, it's about 3 hours a month. Okay. And then I don't know how many it is, right? So 3 hours, that's 36 hours. How much do you get paid again? Mm-hmm. Like that's a lot, isn't it? 36 hours a year just on that particular segment of your need. The rest, I'm sure you're doing this with other stuff. Do you need this? Do you need this? Like others, that's a valuable, and all of a sudden it's not about price. It's about, I can, instead of spending 36 hours a year or a month, whatever it is, searching, I can just call you guys and you guys are going to take care of that for me. And I can now spend more time running my business, or if it's an online thing, I don't have to do anything. Like that's a good deal, right? Mm-hmm. So make it more transactional. But if you read that book, you start to realize there's other ways of approaching that. And it goes to the same type of thing, which is it's about the people and it's about how you connect and all that kind of stuff too.
Commodity is also a word I hear my new investors say weekly. It's like, we are not commoditized. Like we cannot, you cannot, Jess, you cannot let us get commoditized. And I'm like, okay, cool. Do you have a roadmap? Because I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's no real roadmap to that. It's an attitude adjustment or shift. Okay. And it starts with you, obviously, but the team has to understand this is not a commodity. I mean, it may sound like, and people think it is, but listen, that particular shirt, outfit, thing, whatever it is, that's the only one that's there. It's an original, if you will, right? There's no other, like usually these are things that are being pushed out, right? So there's not many left.
Right.
And people still want it. Mm-hmm. So it's not a commodity. It's a shift in a mindset. And especially when you attach pains to it, which are things that people have a problem with.
Okay.
And I don't think we've dug enough into the pain, in my honest opinion. I don't think we dug enough into the pain of what your customers and clients need. I think you need to think a little bit about what is it that really keeps them up at night. And if you have to ask them that question, do it. Like, What if we didn't exist? What would happen? Mm-hmm. Because maybe they'd say, we don't care, but I doubt it.
Right.
Yeah. So I think there's more pains that could be listed out, and each one is going to be different. And honestly, every sale needs to be approached with, I don't know what their pain is. Let's find out.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. And that's how you become not a commodity every time.
Okay.
All right.
Noted.
Cool. Jessica, I really appreciate you being on the show. I really do, because I think this is going to help a lot of other people who run their business and need to figure out how to do that. So I really appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to send this recording to my team too. So
cool. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. If you ever needed to reach out, I'm happy to help you too. So, but I appreciate your time today. And until next time, everybody remember, slow down and close more.
Thank you for listening to The Slow Pitch. Do you have a question about sales? Call or text your question at 608-708-SLOW. That's 608-708-7569. Or you can email them to questions@theslowpitch.com. Slow down and close more.